How's it going, guys? Andy here and welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk to you about fungus gnats and how to get rid of them for good. Now, if you don't know what fungus gnats are or you've never had them and you love houseplants, then stay tuned, because sooner or later there's a very good chance you're going to be introduced to them and it may not be the best experience. Now, there are all sorts of pests that you can get when you own houseplants, but I think one of the most annoying and the most difficult to eradicate is the humble fungus gnat. Just a tiny little thing that looks like a little fruit fly buzzing around near to your houseplants. Now, they usually come in when you buy a houseplant, which is why I talk about the importance of quarantining your houseplants when you buy one. And I'll go over that in a little bit more detail in just a little while. But they usually come in the soil of a houseplant that you've just bought. If you buy it from a garden centre, a houseplant shop, wherever it is, there's a good chance that they will have fungus gnats in the place where they're being grown. They're very difficult to keep out when you have so many plants coming in and out. It doesn't mean the garden centre or houseplant store is doing a bad job. It's just almost impossible not to get them because they're getting plants coming in constantly, and if they've got fungus gnat eggs in the soil, then they're going to have them, they'll move to the other plants, and it goes on. It's almost impossible to stop, but you can stop them coming in your house, or you can stop them pretty easily if you get on top of them straight away. And this is the key. My experience with fungus gnats is that if you let them get a foothold in your house and within your houseplants, they are very, very difficult to remove. And I think my biggest mistake when I got fungus gnats was to not take it seriously enough to begin with. And if I'd isolated the plant that it came in on quickly enough, I think it could have stopped it very quickly. So the way fungus gnats spread is they lay eggs in the soil of the houseplant that you've probably just bought. So you won't necessarily know that you've got fungus gnats. You bring the plant in, and within a week or so, those eggs will start to hatch out within the soil of the houseplant you've bought. And they will hatch out and they will fly around and they will search for another nice houseplant to burrow into the soil of and lay some more eggs. And if you can imagine that each fungus gnat can lay hundreds of eggs, and then out of those hundreds of eggs, those flies fly out and lay hundreds more, it doesn't take very long before you've got a lot of fungus gnats in your house, and then stopping every single one is almost impossible. So the trick is, if you don't have them in your house at the moment, great. You're very lucky, and the key is to keep it that way. So if you buy a house plant and you bring it home, you must quarantine it and keep it away from your other house plants that you've got, because if in a week or so you start to see a fungus gnat flying around that particular house plant, then you know that that house plant has fungus gnats. You can keep the door closed in that room, it's isolated. You can deal with that one plant, medicate it and kill those fungus gnats, stop them proliferating, and you won't then lose control of the situation. So ideally you want to quarantine your new houseplants in a separate room away from all your others. Something you can close the door on, and there's a physical barrier away from your other plants. If you're going to quarantine, I would give it a couple of months, because a few weeks is probably enough for fungus gnats. Their life cycle is relatively short, and if there are eggs in the soil, they would have hatched out within a few weeks. But there are other pests that the houseplant may carry, and if you're going to quarantine, you may as well do it properly and give it a few months, which gives the plant an opportunity to show symptoms of some of the other pests as well. So a few weeks for a fungus gnat is probably okay, but a few months to make sure that that houseplant is got no issues with any other pests or diseases. So the idea is keep it away from everything else, just enjoy it as you would do normally, but keep an eye on it. Have a look at the leaves and everything itself, and after a few months everything's fine. You can put it wherever you want in your house, knowing full well that it's a healthy plant and you're not going to have any trouble. Now let's assume you've got some fungus gnats and you need to deal with them. By far, in my experience, the best way to treat them is Mosquito Bits. Now this is something that's been talked about on YouTube before. I found this advice from another YouTube channel a few years ago, and I must admit it's been my saviour when it comes to fungus gnats. I don't think I would have got rid of them without this. Now there are different things and different techniques you can use, but ultimately without something like this, it's very, very difficult to really put a stop to them. So I'll put a link down below in the description where you can buy these. You can get them on eBay and Amazon and things like that. All you need to do with these things is take like a teaspoonful, even half a teaspoonful, and put it in your watering can before you water the plants. Now, just to be sure you get as much as you can in there. I shouldn't be, that's just making a racket, sorry. Before, you should wait a couple of hours to give them a good soak to make sure that all the good stuff that kills them gets out into the water first before you water your plants. So a little bit in a teaspoon, put it in the water. The instructions are on here about the amount of quantity that you need, but you don't need very much for the amount of water that you use. So something like this isn't particularly cheap, but it will last a long time. This is the only one I've had to buy, and I've still got quite a lot left. So I definitely would recommend it. It's been really good. It's called Mosquito Bits, so it gets rid of mosquitoes, it gets rid of fungus gnats and any similar sort of insect like that. So you can put it in bird baths, in water gardens or anything else like that, and it will stop a community of mosquitoes proliferating and having problems with that as well. It does a few different things, but specifically for fungus gnats, it's amazing. But really this on its own won't do it, because you have to, this will kill the eggs in the soil, which means the eggs won't then hatch out and then become a problem. But you then have to stop the flies that are already in the house then from going down into another pot and doing the same thing, because otherwise you're always playing chase and catch up with it, and it is still very difficult to control, because this only works when you water onto a plant that already has eggs in the soil, and it will kill them, and that's fine. But if you water and it dries out and maybe a week later another fly lands in there and puts eggs in, and you don't water it after that, then they can still hatch out and you've still got a problem. So this, in conjunction with a good routine of being careful quarantining, will make life a lot easier. Now the first thing I would recommend, if you realize you've got them everywhere, as in it's too late and they're in several different plants in your house, the best thing you can do is remove those infected plants from your house if you possibly can. If it's good weather in the summer like it is at the moment, makes life easier. You can put them in an outhouse, maybe outside if the temperature's warm enough where you live. In the potting shed, I've used the potting shed here as a quarantine location for my house plants as well, and I've been able to put the ones that are infected in here and keep them physically separate from the rest of the house. And you really have to get all the plants out that are infected, and then keep a close eye on the rest of your plants to see if there's any more flies in your living space. Now, a good way to try and figure out if there are any fungus gnats in your plant, if you think you saw one fly out of a pot, pick that plant up and just tap around. Let me show you. If you've got a plant like this and you think maybe it's got some fungus gnats, just watch the soil and tap the pot itself and keep a close eye on the soil, because if there's any fungus gnats that are ready to hatch out, this will prompt them to fly out. So generally have a look at it, tap it all the way around and keep a really good eye on the soil, and you'll see them fly out. If you see them fly out, get this out of the house, get it out of the space wherever there are other house plants, isolate it completely. You need to physically remove it. Then you can then start treating it with this, put this in the water that you're using to water your plants, then water that in isolation, and you've just got to be really strict with that. Keep an eye on all the other ones, go around, tap all of the pots and keep an eye on it, see which ones have got flies in them. If you find another one, get it out of your house, get it out of the rest of the location, because it just takes one fungus gnat to fly out and go into another pot, and then it goes over again. You've got another few hundred eggs to lay and have a problem. So You want to use this on all of your houseplants for as long as it takes. Just put in the desired measure depending on how big your watering can is, whatever you're using. Let it soak for a few hours, ideally let it soak overnight, and then keep all of your plants watered with this. Now, it's worth noting that you don't want to water more than normal. Just when you water, make sure these are in the water, which will help. Because actually by watering more often, you're going to provide a damp atmosphere, and that creates fungus, which is what attracts the fungus gnats in the first place. So if anything, you want to keep it slightly on the drier side for those plants. But obviously you need to water them to get this stuff in here, so it's a bit of a catch-22. But don't feel the need to water it more often to get this stuff in here, because then you're just creating the right environment to attract fungus gnats. But that's what I would say. Keep the faith, and if you have got them everywhere, just be as strict as you can and try and track down the location of the individual houseplants that have the fungus gnats in them and remove them from wherever the rest of your houseplants are. Another good way of being able to identify which of your houseplants have the fungus gnats is using these sticky traps. Now this is a bit of a manky one. Just found it in the bin on my potting shed here to give you an example. You get these in multi-packs, and what they are very, very tacky strips here. All of this is sticky, and then you've got this bit that sticks in the ground in your houseplant, and the bright yellow color attracts the fungus gnats. For some reason they're attracted to it, and as they come out of the soil, a few of them will land on here and get stuck, and they can't go anywhere. Now, it's not particularly great for keeping the numbers in check, because there's just going to be so many. A lot of them won't get attracted and they'll fly off, and there'll still be a problem. But what it does do is help you identify which plants I've got an issue. So if you buy a pack of these, I'll link it down below where you can get them, and stick one of these in each of your house plants, and then just keep an eye on it every day. Have a look and see if there's any. If there's any fungus gnats stuck there, you know that's more likely got a problem with fungus gnats, and you can then remove that from the area and then treat it with the mosquito bits. So it's like a multi-pronged strategy. That's the only way. Use the mosquito bits, use these, and use isolation as well to keep them separate from the rest of your plants. You keep that up, keep on top of it, and be really strict. If you leave it a week and don't really pay attention, and a few of those flies come out of a pot that you didn't realize and go into another pot, you're back to square one. You really have to keep up the momentum and make sure that you don't have any in your house. And fingers crossed, at the moment I haven't seen a fungus gnat in my house for a couple of weeks, and I think I've finally got on top of it by physically removing like probably a quarter of my house plants and keeping them, some here, some in my side alleyway, which is also a warm, bright location at the side of my house. And just keeping them all separate and giving them all water with the mosquito bits, and I think we've got to the bottom of it now, and I'll bring them back in another week's time and we should be good to go. And then it's just a case of keeping an eye on things. I don't think it's a bad thing to periodically water with the mosquito bits, just to be proactive. They're not harmful to pets, they're not harmful to fish or any wildlife, so you haven't got to worry about that. But obviously it is classed as an insecticide, so try not to get it on your hands, try not to breathe in the dust from these bits, and generally just keep it at arm's length. I think these are pretty good as far as insecticides go. They're not that toxic, but just exercise caution with any of these things. Read the instructions on the pack. Make sure you keep yourself safe. All right, guys, I think that pretty much covers all of my advice on keeping out of the way of fungus gnats. I hope you found it useful. Please give it a thumbs up if you have. It really does make a difference from the old YouTube algorithm, so thank you in advance for that. Subscribe if you're new around here for houseplant videos coming along every single week. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye for now.